for Thanksgiving, and we are in the beautiful New England state, not too far from Plymouth Rock, right? We're in the beautiful New England state of New Hampshire, and getting ready to celebrate Thanksgiving. And we had quite a shock today, didn't we? I think we were all pretty well convinced, if not convinced, I think cautious in the sense that we should assume the worst in a situation like this. I'll give you a little of my instruction, both those that I received and those that I gave on emergency management. Always assume the worst. So let's say I get a notification that there's a big fire in a certain part of New York City, and it's attached to other buildings to which it could spread. I begin with the worst case scenario that it could spread, and I get prepared for that. I don't necessarily call a four-on fire right away or have the fire department do it, but we get ready for it. We alert the units that might become part of the second and third and fourth wave right away, and we bring them in earlier rather than later. I see that very, very often done very mistakenly by people who either haven't studied emergency management or just don't have an instinct for it. So the right thing was done here to assume that it was probably a terrorist or possibly a terrorist attack, and to approach it from that point of view. What does that mean? That means checking all of your sources, checking international sources, checking national sources, going through every database, putting the country on alert. Didn't necessarily have to close every airport. It wasn't at that level. Remember November 13th of 2001, when the airplane heading to the Dominican Republic from John F. Kennedy Airport went down right into Rockaway. Very, very odd and very unfortunate situation, because Rockaway was the place that had probably one of the biggest impacts from September 11th. I think the second most people died, and they came from Rockaway. Rather, I think Staten Island was number one. So that we assumed was a terrorist attack. So did the president. Didn't need our advice on that. He did right away. Closed the airports and kept them closed until noon, when it was definitively determined that it was not a terrorist attack. Here, the same thing. The first. What happened? Just in case you've missed on this story, which would be hard to believe, about noontime today, a car apparently, now this is the latest version, of which we've had about 4 different versions, and I think this part's pretty solid. A car came over the Rainbow Bridge. The Rainbow Bridge is in Buffalo, New York, and connects Buffalo, New York to Canada, and right at Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls is just a few miles from it. You can basically almost see Niagara. I think once you go over the bridge, you can see Niagara Falls. This car, it turns out, although there was a lot of confusion about this, was coming from Canada to the United States. I believe it went through, not sure of this part, because this part has changed several times. I believe it went through the first checkpoint or a checkpoint. And then at some point, either was directed to go to an area to be searched more fully, or just took off like a bat out of hell, let's say, and started going very, very fast, described by witnesses as 80, 90, 100 miles an hour in that small area. Lost control, went flying in the air, hit the ground, and exploded. And exploded to such an extent that there was very little structure left to the car. So the first assumption was that it was an explosion. In fact, there were reports that there were explosives exploded the car So it was a suicide bombing. And in addition to that, there were more explosives found in the car, creating the impression that it was, loaded with explosives to be used somewhere. It turns out the best information available now is that the car didn't have explosives and that the car went up in flames. Here, maybe we can show some pictures of this. This is the area. This is the area around. This is the area right around the checkpoint. That's the checkpoint itself. There's the area around it, and it's the thing that is not for certain is whether the car went through those toll booths. You see the car going through the toll. That's not necessarily the car, but this would be what it went through. What are we showing now, Ted?
We're going to show it here, and you can talk while we show it.
Yeah, why don't we? Because the interpretation of these films has changed several times. And I'm not blaming anyone for this. This is what happens in an emergency. My goodness, am I used to this? I think at every emergency, I would warn the people in New York whenever I was handling one, do not take any of these facts as absolutely accurate. This is what we have right now. I guarantee you they're going to change. You have got to be able to have a mind that allows you to flow with the facts. And one fact flows into another and it changes. And then you realize the connection.
Here's the video.
All right. I don't think that's the car. I'm pretty certain that's
This is the checkpoint.
But this is the checkpoint that the car is believed to have gone through. And it is after it went through that checkpoint that it
there's the car.
That it took off
there
in
it is,
there.
Right
there you go. There you go. You can see it. You can see it slipping around, right? Apparently, this is the point at which it takes off and it starts to go very, very fast. And at some point, it goes so fast it either hits something. And there you go. It takes off in the air. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it flying. Look at that. It's like some kind of acrobat. And bam, it hits the ground there. And when it hits the ground, it explodes. That's what caused the explosion, not explosives. This is the best footage I've seen, Ted. Excellent. Excellent. Terrible. That's
there it is. So this first, they'll see at the end there. Let's play it again. So here at the beginning, if you look at the top of the screen there.
Is that the car at the top of the screen? Oh, the white one.
Way up there. You see
I
that?
see it. It's the car in back of the car going through. I see it, Ted, if I'm correct.
That's right.
If they look on the screen and they go from left to right and they count 1, 2, 3 toll booths, right?
Yep.
They look at the third toll booth and they look at the back of the third toll booth. They'll see
above it, really, right? Behind it, but in the video.
The car waiting to come into the toll. One is just about coming through. There it goes, comes through. And the white one in the back was the car.
Here's a close-up.
And there it is. Now there is the white car. And there it takes off, right of that patch of grass.
Man, that's looked like Evel Knievel here.
Well,
look at this thing. Look at it go. That thing flew. That may have flown a full football field in the air. Literally, that may have gone 100 yards in the air.
Again, let's stop right here. See the car go through? See the white car in back? That's the car.
It went off of a makeshift jump almost, right?
Well, it looks like it hit something. It looks like there was an obstruction between the road and the grass because it comes up to the grass and then it goes off on the side and then it goes up in the air. That helped it. Stop it right there if you can.
I can.
Okay, you see, it seems to hit something right near the grass. See it? Right there. Right there. It's still level, right? Now, next frame, it's going to start. It must hit. You see the ridge there? Small ridge?
The curb.
Yeah, the curb sent it up in the air. It's unbelievable to think the curve would. Now, right there, not even yet. There it goes.
So it hit something here. Now watch it fly. How far is this thing going, Mayor?
I don't know. It's hard to tell, but you were right. A football field, maybe.
Look at this thing. So there it is.
There's a school building. Let's watch that school building in the back. There's the school building.
There's a car in the air now. See it on the left?
The car's in the air at the beginning of the school building. It goes past the school building. It goes past.
Oh, that's not even real. Is that real?
It looks like conservatively, it was in the air for double the size of the school building, possibly 3 times the school building. It looked like it goes up in the air at the beginning of the school building in the background, right? Look look at that. It goes up in the air. There's the school building. Now we're past the school building. We're now past the school. We're still past the school building. We're still past the school building, and it comes down. So I measure it that way. I measure it as 2 to 3 school buildings. That's 1 to 2 football fields. That's 100, 200 yards in the air. And you know the other thing that's remarkable, Ted, it projected so high in the air.
There must have been a ramp. There must have been a ramp.
It had to be. There had to be something
like a movie, like a stunt.
There had to be something bigger.
Let's see if I can.
There had to be something bigger than what we see, and it's surprised it didn't turn over.
Right.
I'm surprised it didn't turn back on the side that it was leaning, and then it created a massive. And then it created a massive. It created a massive fire. So for the longest time, this is at noon. By even 3, when we were on the radio at 3 to 4, it was still being seen as a, I'd say more than a possible terrorist attack. It was pretty much considered a terrorist attack, and it was the question was, I mean, the questions were, was it a singular terrorist, a lone wolf? There was confusion. How could it be a lone wolf? There were 2 people in the car. Suicide terrorists never are 2 people; it's always 1. On the other hand, how could it not be a terrorist attack? There was a warning the day before that Governor Hochul gave New York that there was some specific threat to New York. She never gave the basis of it, but that's usually not given. So there's no way to connect it to how specific was it to what we were seeing. But the fact that there was a warning the day before and then an explosion the day after at a entry point. And for a good 3 to 4 hours, the strong possibility that this was a terrorist attack. All of the bridges in that area were closed. Don't believe bridges outside the area were closed, but all the bridges in that area were closed, which unnerved obviously everyone. And then, as the fire calmed down and they were able to take a better look at the scene, and they realized that there was no explosion. This was done by the car. The massive fire was created by whatever happened with the car, and there was no other indications of a terrorist attack. They changed it to probably not a terrorist attack, just some very, very questionable, very tragic incident. The 2 people in the car were killed. Several people were injured, but I don't think very seriously. Somebody went to the hospital, and there were no other. There were no other injuries. Is there a chance we can show them the map, Ted, of that area from the various shots that you have there? Because I know the area. I'm sure a lot of people do. It's a very, very big. It used to be at one time a very big honeymoon place, and then of course a big vacation place, and it still is a big vacation place on the Canadian side. And now on the New York side, we both have casinos there. Um, I have a small picture of it that isn't very clear, but I can show it on there if I have to. Here, absolutely, right here, Chad.
I'm looking for a map.
If you don't have it, I have one right here.
I don't have one yet. But
All right, here we go. If you will look at this, you'll see in the little corner there. Let me see if I can get this. In the little corner. It's in the northwest corner of New York. It's right here, and it's right on the border with Canada. right on the border with Canada. And Buffalo is the town right before it. Then you drive past Buffalo into Niagara, and before you even get into the official city of Niagara, you get to the Rainbow Bridge. Now, the Rainbow Bridge is here. This is Niagara Falls, New York, right here. On this side is Niagara Falls, New York. On that side, on that side is Niagara Falls, Canada. You get views and beautiful views of the falls from both, and there are beautiful hotels and places for honeymoons, vacations, gambling on both sides. This person was coming across the bridge here, right up here, and he was coming from here across here, and it happened right there on the map. On the New York side, that is the Niagara River that is flowing down, and the fall, you can almost see it right here. There's the falls. Very, very, one of the most famous parts of the United States, right? Isn't it one of the 8 wonders of the world? I think so. Or is it 7 wonders of the world?
It was 7 at one point. I think it's gone up.
I think it has. There was real confusion about it. Either Biden got it wrong or somebody got it wrong, but there's real confusion. I think
Of course he got it wrong.
I think they added, I think it is 8 now. It used to be only 7. I think. We'll check on that, but it is. I mean, it's an unbelievable thing to see. It's almost become, I'm not going to say a little commonplace because it's so familiar people know it so well. But you don't see too much like that anywhere place else in the world. I mean, that is when you're there, the power of it is unbelievable. I mean, it gives you, if you're a religious person at all, it gives you a sense of the power of the Almighty, and just what kind of world on earth He created. So we'll have to really stay on this and find out what it is. At this point, it's um, I'm not going to call it confused. It's not confused. It's in the nature of an investigation like this. We got a lot of things to blame public officials for not solving this and not knowing what this is immediately. It's not one of them because it's a mystery. At this point, the car is destroyed. You don't get the benefit of the license plate, a description of the car. You get a little description from what Ted just showed, which is actually the best picture I've seen. That explains what happened better than hadn't even seen that before. No, that was that originally. They couldn't have had that originally because if they had that originally, they never would have speculated much that it was a terrorist act, because it seemed like an accident. I mean, you see the guy is going too fast. It's a very, very wet, slippery street, and boom, he goes flying in the air. So after that, and we'll show it again because it really, I think it's one of the more remarkable things I've ever seen. Terrible, remarkable, but remarkable. We'll take a short break. And we'll be right back, and we'll be discussing a little bit of, I think, the most beautiful American holiday. Christmas and Easter beyond this, but for just a regular holiday, this is the most beautiful of the year. We'll be back very shortly. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnels to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. So make your contribution on this rather significant eve, the eve of Thanksgiving, to Tunnel to Towers, T2T.org, $11 a month. And get that money in so it can help them with their holiday special. You know, they do a house a month between now maybe tomorrow, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Huh. They build it up all year and they try to get it done now so that people can enjoy the holidays in their new home that is built for them. You know, this is quite a tie, isn't it? I told you I don't like bow ties. I wear them because I was challenged a while back by my stepdaughter, Whitney. She said I couldn't do a tie, and we made a bet around Christmas time, and I lost the bet. And then I learned how to do it because I became so convinced. I said, I can't get that straight. Isn't that ridiculous? Okay. So let's now talk about the second gigantic story of the night, which is the now delayed hostage exchange, or let's call it Hamas fleeces the U.S. and Israel. Hamas takes U.S. and Israel for a ride. Hamas rips the clothes off Israel and the U.S. Hamas wins, Israel, U.S. loses. Could I try a few others? It is true, and it is no small matter, and impossible to even analyze from the point of view of the families who on the eve of Thanksgiving, the Americans in particular who celebrate that. I don't believe the Israelis do, but at any time, to get your relatives back who you knew were being held by barbarians, and who knows what was going to happen to them, or was happening to them, or has happened to them, is a wonderful thing for them. And for them, we are extraordinarily happy. And this is a very complex thing to say. It's a very complex thing to discuss. But leadership of large nations in a time of crisis involves complexity. And if you can't handle complexity and you can't analyze it, please go do something else. Because you have to be able to figure out what your actions are going to create. This action, whatever you want to say about how wonderful it is for the people, will lead to multiple deaths. Not a few, multiple. It will lead to more kidnappings on a large scale because they take lots of people. And they do it because they know the leverage they have over the much more decent Israeli people. They wouldn't give it. You could take all their people as hostages. They wouldn't give it to them until they kill them. They kill them. I do not, for the life of me, understand the young American people who are all literate, at least. I don't know if they're intelligent. I don't know if they're human. I don't know if they're not drugged up with marijuana, reduced brains, or whatever the hell's wrong with them. I don't know how anybody can protest for Hamas or for Palestine, for that matter. Palestine is a terrorist state. Hamas doesn't run Palestine because the Palestinians don't want them. Palestinians have done nothing to get rid of them. Unlike other countries that are oppressed, like Iran, they do not have regular protests. Everything you read or see from a Palestinian, Hamas or not, is hating Jews. They hate, despise, and want Jews to be eliminated from the face of the earth. That describes the Hamas Palestinians. It describes the Fatah Palestinians. It describes the Palestinians. There is a very, very excellent article in this week's Epoch Times about a young man who grew up in Palestine and then went to Israel. And as a result of many, many complex things that happened in his life, he ultimately became Jewish and an Israeli citizen. And he reflects back on how from the time he was in school, the first thing he was taught was to hate Jews and to kill them. And all of his classmates were, whether they were part of a terrorist group, a family that was part of a terrorist group, or they were not. I have seen more than a few videos given out by the UN that train Palestinians to hate Jews. Given out by the let me say it again. Given out by the UN. Given out by the same organization that is giving out the humanitarian fuel and food. And therefore, if I were to say that that's going to Hamas, I'm not saying that as just a flyby statement. Who do you think they're going to give it to? They're part of Hamas. The UN favors Hamas. The U.S. hates Israel. The U.S. votes against Israel en masse every time it can. And it allows the Islamic extremists to do things that are below human and celebrates it. And these idiot children of ours go protest for them. Don't recognize the fact that the Palestinians line up children in front of them to die in order to make Israel look bad. They shoot their own people in the back if they try to escape. These people are dedicated to one thing and one thing alone, and that ultimately it's a caliphate. A caliphate means an empire, an empire of Islamists. That whole notion gained life and became organized under the Islamic Republic of Iran. When the Shah was deposed, for a short period of time, there was an interim semi-democratic government, semi-modern government, or government attempting to go moderate. And then the Ayatollah came back, fooled them, had them agree to letting him come back on the theory that he was going to go off to Qom and just pray like the Pope, hopefully not like the present Pope. And, like removing bishops who are too conservative and, don't believe in paying lots of money for illegal immigrants so they can get themselves abused, killed, human trafficked. I mean, this guy must live in another world. I don't mean another religious world. I mean liberation theology, communist world. I don't know that I can be expelled from the church for believing that the Pope is a communist. His political views are not a matter of faith or morals. As a Catholic, I have to follow him when he makes a religious pronouncement. I do not have to follow him. He can be just as wrong as I am about politics. In this particular case, he's a lot more wrong about politics than I am. And but the reality is he was going to be the Pope and not interfere. The moment he came home, demonstrations all over the country, they take over in a week or two. He's in charge. He kills everybody. He does exactly what communists do. He gets rid of all of his allies first. All those groups that helped him, that he was going to share power with, like the way Biden is working with China and et cetera. They're the first ones to go. Boom, boom, boom. Goodbye. Forget them, because they can't be trusted. I mean, if they screwed their friends before, they're going to do it again, right? The people around the Shah, double-cross the Shah. They figured they'd be in better shape with the new government. Well, Ayatollah said, if the Shah can't trust him, how the hell can I trust him? Generally, that's the way people treat, people that become disloyal. But in any event, that's what they want to do. And they fueled that desire for a caliphate in the Islamic extremists. There was never really that in that sense before, maybe back in the 1920s or so. And remember, the chief caliph or the chief mufti, whatever the heck his name was close to Hitler. So let's get it set real straight. These people, can I say it one more time? They hate Jews. Oh, by the way, it's only about 1,400 years old. So you're not going to do much about it. Muhammad did. Stop it. Don't tell me about all the nice things he wrote about Jews, because I'm an educated person. I'm not a fool like the people from Harvard in the streets. I read the entire Quran. I'm aware of the fact that the books are disordered. They're not in the right order. And I'm aware of the fact that there were two Muhammads, the holy preacher who wanted to convert everybody, and the guy who came in with an army and killed everybody, or killed the top people in the town so he could get their attention like MS-13 does, or like his modern day followers, Hamas do. He did that stuff. He did. Sorry. What are you going to do? You have a fatah against me already. All right. 2, you threatened to kill me in Albania, failed. You threatened to kill me in France, failed. So I don't know. I'm on borrowed time. I'm not telling people who are Islamic to give up their religion. I'm telling them, be honest about your religion. Read off the bad Muhammad. Strike it off to, he got angry because he got rejected. I don't think he was insane the way some people do. The people in his day thought he was, because he was an epileptic who would have these fits when he was preaching. As part of the reason he was an unsuccessful preacher and had to become a warrior, and he had to conquer by murder, which is what he did. He conquered by murder and by terror. That's how he spread the religion. This wasn't like Peter and Paul preaching the gospel of salvation. This was like a army of conquest, and a rather brutal one, that would use terrorist techniques to take over Jewish, Christian, and otherwise Arab lands and force them to be Muslim. That's how the religion spread. So if the religion has an appeal to people who are using those tactics, there's a historical basis for it that has to be read out of the religion as too ancient, too old, too much a product of that time, and not enough a product of this time. And the best of Muhammad should be the religion. This is. I know I'm preaching to someone their own religion, but it's for their good and the good of the world. But that's what we're facing. And we're facing it because Iran became so powerful and actually showed them that there can be an Islamic republic. And they want to spread it at least all throughout the Middle East. And what stands in their way? Israel, big time, destroy it. To some extent, also the United States, which is their ultimate goal. And then to some extent, Saudi Arabia and some of the Arab countries that resist that kind of messianic goal or ancient goal. They've really modernized and become more accommodating to the real world. And although they have their own form of terrorism and they make accommodations to it to survive, they don't agree with it. So it's a complicated thing. So making deals with them you pay a big price for it. You pay a big price for it, and you save these human lives and you lose others. Make no mistake about it, what Biden forced Netanyahu to do will kill more people. And that's not unusual for Biden, because he kills a lot of people. Just think of all the people that he killed in Afghanistan through his decision making. Think of all the people that were killed in Ukraine because Putin realized he had a weakling, crooked, dishonest, amoral president. You know, Putin knows everything about Biden. Putin is not like some of you who pretend that Biden wasn't a 30-year massive crook and is a degenerate. Putin has all the details. He's got the contracts. He's got the documents. He's got twice as many documents as I have with the hard drive, and he's got about 3 times more pictures. So he knows what he's dealing with. He's dealing with a piece of yuck. He's a killer. He's a yuck. But this guy, yeah. Guy sold his soul before he had one. And you saw him with the little girl the other day. Well, I got to draw a picture for you. I'm not allowed to draw pictures like that, and wouldn't. What's he doing going over to that little girl? And you see grown men smelling little girls' hair like he does, and I'm not going to tell you what the pictures of his son show. This is a decrepit piece of in the White House, and he's getting people killed. And here we are in the middle of a vast, difficult decision that had to be made by Netanyahu, and we've got this guy pressuring him to let 150 Palestinian terrorists go free, to get back 50 women and children, which is great, getting back the 50 women and children. It's terrible giving up the 150 terrorists because they're just going to go right back. These are effective warriors that they're getting back in an army that theoretically Israel's trying to deplete. When you deplete, you don't reinforce. You're not also the source of the reinforcement, which Bibi now is. But worse than that, they get 5 days to escape, to go elsewhere, to reinforce their booby traps. There's no doubt that no matter what happens, they're going to be more effective 5 days later than they are now. What does more effective mean? More Israelis die. So you're not saving Israeli lives. You're fooling people. It's a shell game. You are saving the lives, which apparently you haven't figured out how to do with an extrication, which is a shame, since Israel used to be so damn good at extrication, and we are. And why we haven't attempted it, why we don't see U.S. Special Forces trying to get our people out of there. It's as if Biden has subcontracted the safety and protection of Americans to Israel. Where the hell are our special forces? They're as good or better than Israel's. I know that. I've worked with them, and they don't. Their extrication rate is in the 80 and 90%.
The U.S. or
U.S. And we learned from Israel, but I'm not. I believe we're better than they are now. First of all, we've had more recent practice with the war. The one thing America is that none of these adversaries are. We're ready. We haven't missed a generation without a war.
Oh yeah.
I mean, China hasn't been to war really since Chiang Kai-shek, and the stupid little things they do with make-believe against make-believe armies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they haven't been. You see what happened to Russia going into Ukraine? That's an army that couldn't capture. You don't think if we had the same number of troops, America had the same number of troops and the same armaments that they had, that we wouldn't have captured Ukraine? Would have been done in about 3 or 4 weeks. And now we're not going to capture Ukraine, and we shouldn't. But we're a much, even if we're smaller in some ways than China, we're without any doubt the most advanced military force in the world. They aren't, and Russia showed it because, I mean, they did have some practice in Afghanistan, but they got their asses kicked in Afghanistan. I mean, we didn't. We left Afghanistan because we got tired, but we captured it in about 4 weeks. We had it under control in 4 or 5 weeks, and our soldiers went back and became horse soldiers. Hadn't been horse soldiers in 130 years. These guys, they call it the cavalry. The last 100 years, if you remember the cavalry, you don't see a horse. Maybe a tank, but not a horse. Well, they went back on horses and had bin Laden sitting in a cave eating insects in about 4 weeks, and it stopped it. Well, Russia still hasn't done that in Ukraine, and Afghanistan, was ready for war. Those people are warriors. So it's very, very hard to be against this deal because it pulls at your heart with the 50 people being released. But then when you consider that human life is human life, and if the release of the 50 is going to mean the death of 1,000, is that the right decision, Ted? I don't know. I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can weigh things like that. Here, these 50 people are being offered to you. They will be alive, and their families will be whole. For that, you're going to give up 150 people who will spend, as long as they remain alive, because you're going to be at war with them, trying to kill you. That's 150 more Palestinians able to kill you. Maybe yesterday you killed 150 Palestinians. You've just replaced them with 150 to get your 50 people back. But then beyond that, you have certainly made it clear that you are susceptible to being extorted by taking hostages. And therefore, more will be taken. That's why they took these hostages in the first place, because they know Israel's practice of giving up 1,000 Palestinians for one Israeli.
Is this not new? Is this something that they've done previously?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Well, how about the one for 1,000 was probably the most egregious one.
That's happened, though?
They did that.
In the 90s?
No, not even in the 90s. Maybe 7 or 8 years ago. They gave up they got back one soldier who was kidnapped, and they gave up 1,000 Palestinians, one of whom led the effort against them on the 6th of October.
Yes, I'm sure.
He was sitting. Otherwise, had they not gotten the one back and that poor man had died, there would not have been there might have been another leader.
Yeah.
For that group, there might not have been.
But as you kind of said, Mayor, what a tough call to make. And so being on the outside, it's so I can't sit here and like you mentioned, you have 50 people. To any one of those individuals and their families,
this is the right decision.
This is everything.
To those
right?
50, but none of them have been elected to run the government. Would you want that person in charge of your government who runs it all for the benefit of their family?
Of course not.
Israel,
but if
Israel right now is being Israelis, I'm not going to say 1 million, but 1,000 Israeli lives are at stake in this. It is conceivable that in the course of just rearming for 5 or 6 days, the Hamas army is able to take out 400 or 500 more Israelis than they otherwise would be able to do if Israel just plowed right through against an army that is on the back of its backside.
And basically, because without saying it, operate under the idea that these hostages are dead.
Or
is that one? Is that not dead, but pretty much. Look, what's done is done.
Yes,
okay,
but isn't that what you're doing in a war all the time? Aren't you in a war always calculating how to have the least amount of losses, knowing you're going to have some? And you make calculated decisions to minimize your losses. Here, it's a calculated decision that will maximize your losses. So as a military decision, as a governmental decision, it's an easy decision. It shouldn't be done. As a human decision, it's dreadfully difficult because we are, and the Israelis are, good people. This would not occur to them. It wouldn't occur to the Nazis. It wouldn't occur to the communists. Human life is not that important. For them, the government is so important that this calculation never even. This is a ridiculous calculation.
Yeah, they would.
That's a ridiculous. I mean, they go shoot their own people.
They'd shoot, and they'd call them martyrs. They'd say they're dead. They'd lie to their own people, say they're dead, and they're martyrs for the cause.
They would be doing the right thing, and their families would be honored and praised. And I mean, it's a great way to illustrate.
Yes,
the different, and it's part of what makes you sick when you think of the thousands, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of American kids.
Yep, millions
marching for them.
Yeah, it's
marching for these barbarian, cruel, vicious, back in the 7th century, whatever you want to call it.
Do these American kids have any idea what Hamas would do to them as Americans? Do they not understand that Hamas considers them the enemy?
And they all come to it because of Marxism. They haven't been brainwashed into becoming Islamic extremists. In fact, they ignore, if they attempted to brainwash them into being Islamic extremists, it wouldn't work. It would be contrary to their other values. If you really started to tell them the truth about what they do to gays and lesbians, no liberal.
They go silent. They can't. You see their head. Yeah, they're trying to mental gymnastic their way through it.
They think it's American propaganda.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't possibly be a committed, not even gay and lesbian, but like I am, a committed to the rights of gays and lesbians, the legitimate rights that gays and you can't possibly be committed to that and be an Islamic extremist. You might have a hard time being Orthodox Islamic.
Islamic in general.
If you get to, I mean, they're angry at the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church considers it a sin, but the Catholic Church has never considered being gay or lesbian a capital crime. Western civilization has never considered it being a capital crime. I don't think so. And if it was so damn long ago, nobody remembers. I don't remember people in America, even the terrible America of slavery, being executed for being gay and lesbian. I don't remember people being taken out of bars in the West.
If you're in Salem, they would just
call the guy was gay and they hung him.
That was maybe 400 years ago. You're a witch. The worst that happened, they'd call you a witch.
Maybe that's right. Maybe it got interpreted like
Salem Mass.
Like Muhammad got interpreted as a madman because he was an epileptic.
Yeah,
that might be true. They might have, if they caught you, they might have killed you on the theory that you're possessed by the devil. If you do things like that, that is possible. But that was an awful long time ago. And it never got recorded in the Bible. It never got recorded in the holy books or the official books. This is in the Quran. This is in the holy book of the religion that, wipe these unnatural predators out. But now let's talk a little about Thanksgiving. What a beautiful feast. We're going to put away the sadness of what happened here. I just wonder who these people were, and it looks like when I saw the explosion, Ted, I did think there were explosives in the car because I don't remember cars exploding. How do you that much?
Yeah,
I don't recall cars just kind of blowing up on us.
Yeah,
like that. But if I had seen what you showed me, I would have gotten it from. I think you and I both would have realized it wasn't a terrorist attack.
If we saw that, we would have known instantly.
I wonder if they changed their minds when they finally did get to see it.
Yeah, they must have. Yeah. Oh my gosh! Yeah.
I bet. Well, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk about Thanksgiving. And then we're going to review this and. Israel and some other things briefly, but we'll talk a little about Thanksgiving. Ted and I, we want you to chime in. Tell us what you...
Our device is something that you can plug into your television, and now you can use your television as a social television type experience. So in the Portal universe, you can watch your favorite content creators' videos, live streams, music. We also have TV subscriptions as well.
Subscriptions.
You can also
regular channels, all the sports.
Right. You can actually cut your cable from your cable subscription and get QUX TV on our QX TV boxes, and you can pay half the price that you're currently paying for your cable television subscription, and you can get all the best premium TV channels and more. I mean, it's really, there's so much on there, Rudy. I mean, you've seen it.
No, I've seen it and I use it, and it's good. I mean, it's great. It's just exactly the same except for half the price. Plus, nobody is finding out what I'm watching, and that's not being reported to anybody.
Right. So you have absolute privacy using this device, which you don't have on other devices out there currently on the market.
This is absolutely great. QUX.TV is how you can find out about it. QUX.TV.
Use promo code RUDY to receive $30 off.
Every basket in the world offered to me. I mean, it's ridiculous. I go crazy.
Now we're back.
I like to buy things online. I have to confess that.
You do.
You know that, right?
I don't. Which is
a lot of this equipment we have, I bought online.
Yeah.
I go on DuckDuckGo or sometimes on Google. I go to DuckDuckGo when I'm looking for something that's anti-Democrat and pro-Republican that they're going to probably hide. And I use DuckDuckGo a lot. I recommend it. It's much fairer, much better coverage. And you're going to find stuff there like on J6 that you're not going to find on Google. But in any event, I use Google for things like, what's the best microphone for podcasts? There you go. right there. This one had a little trouble. It broke. We stayed up late last night getting it ready for today because it's such a good microphone. This is one of the best microphones. There's no this. So you go on the list, say the best microphones, and usually you got about 10 lists on Google and DuckDuckGo. So you do a consensus. Like this will not come out number one on all 10. This will probably come out number one on 7 of the 10. Now you got to look at price. Is it in your price range, or is it beyond your price range? When we first started, this was beyond our price range for what we thought we were going to do, and we bought a very good microphone, a Shure SHURE microphone that cost about somewhere between $90 and $110. And the beauty of it was that it could hook up both to XLR, which is the official television thing. It also could hook up to, I can hook it up to my iPhone. I can do this too. It's a little more complicated, but I can do it with this one as well. And so I got it and we loved it. It was a great microphone. And you know the microphone. It's used all the time. I should have one with me. It's used a lot for interviews because they make a wireless version of it. And we were very happy with that. And then when we started to get much bigger numbers and people were saying a little better audio quality would be good, we went to Shure. I was originally going to get this, but this is $100 more than the Shure 7. This is a Shure 7BM. This is a much older and almost an iconic microphone. And so we bought 2 of the 7s and we use them right now. Ted has one right in front of him right now. Beautiful microphone. And then our friend Mike brought this over for us to use. And I have to tell you, this microphone is, if I were a singer and not a podcaster, I would use this microphone for sure. For what we do, almost impossible. Mike isn't here tonight, so I can say it and he won't punch me. For what we do, there's hardly a difference between this, which is $100 more than the 7 that he has there. And they're both quite beautiful. I don't think for the spoken voice, you can tell the difference. There is a thing that is different about them, though. This is really a directional microphone. You got to talk right in here. So you'll notice if I go back here sometimes, it's a little harder. So if I use the other Shure microphone, I could do more of this. But here's the problem. You would hear everything back there. Here, and since we do it at home a lot, and little Gracie's around, making her little noises, this will keep some of Gracie's noises out. But when we're in Florida, I like to have Gracie as a background. In fact, I may get accused of child labor because I try to instigate her. You don't see me do it, but I try to instigate her to make little noises. Pretty soon she'll be on. Look, Gracie's got no choice. Her father is now a broadcaster. I am a broadcaster. Her grandmother had a lifetime of broadcasting, including she was a chief anchor in Miami, Florida. She did the evening news in New York for 15 years. And she's been on movies like Law and Order. And I mean, she's the best one of us. Andrew will sometimes say, well, I take after my father. Politically, not as a broadcaster. That's why he's better than I am. He takes after his mother, who really is good. She'd be so surprised I said that about her. But it's true. And she's also the best mother you ever saw. We're divorced. But I'm telling you, Andrew wouldn't be Andrew if it wasn't for Mommy. Thanksgiving, it's Thanksgiving. You got to be thankful for what you got. I got 2 great kids. Thank you, Donna. Thank you. And I hope she realizes I had something to do with it too. I did some, not as much, but I did. And you know who really had a lot to do with it? Because I have this belief, because I've seen friends of mine who were as good as parents as I was or Donna. And I've seen them with 3, 4 kids, maybe 3 kids, just as good as Andrew, Caroline, or anybody you could talk about. And one kid goes off and is a bad kid, like a drug addict or a criminal or hates their parents or And who knows what they did different? They didn't. Something in the kid, or one of the things that I've gotten it down to, and I just gave Andrew a little lecture about this, about how to be a good father, which he doesn't need. He's naturally a great father. But I said, sometimes you got to think this way. And Donna and I used to have these conversations. It's really more important to some extent what their peers tell them than what you tell them as a parent. So at a certain stage, they become a lot like their peers. Like I can tell them that doesn't look good, and they'll say, "Oh, you don't know modern fashion." But if the three girlfriends say, "Caroline, that looks awful," I might as well say of it. So think about that. I hope the kids aren't listening. Think about using the. Be aware.
These things.
Be aware of your children's friends as they're growing up, and to the extent that you can't manipulate the whole thing, but to the extent that you can, try to foster the positive ones, the ones that you would like your kid to be like, as opposed to the negative ones who are the mean, like the mean girls, and you're gonna find out that the kid takes a lot of the signals from that, not from you. That comes a point when it's you. But that's much later on. Like everything my father ever told me now is right. Here I am, 2,000 years old, and I think back on that. So Christmas, there was a big thing, and somebody tried to act like they were a genius yesterday on Newsmax because someone said George Washington started Thanksgiving, and the Democrat plant that they had on, because he has to have something right, everything else he says is wrong, said, no, it was actually Abraham Lincoln. You're both right. George Washington, in fact, pronounced the first.
He did? I did think it was Lincoln.
No, it was Washington. He did it. He did it to be thankful for the Constitution. It was right after the Constitution was proclaimed and for the new republic. And he did it. Now, here I could be a little confused, but I think I'm right. He picked the fourth. I don't remember if either the third or fourth Thursday in November. It's always was located there. But then it fell out of use for a long time. Thanksgiving was a local holiday in certain parts of the country. In 1863, think of when that is, 1863, right in the heart of the toughest part of the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln dug out old George's proclamation, and he made it the fourth Thursday in November. Is that the one there? Do we have it?
I do. This is Abe Lincoln. I do.
Oh, maybe it was the third. Was it the third?
Invite my fellow citizens in every part of the United States, and
the last
also
Thursday.
Those who are at sea and those who are sojourning in foreign lands to set apart and observe the last Thursday of November.
Now here's something very interesting happens. In the middle of the Depression, so think about it.
Time out, Mayor. What does this mean? He set apart and to set apart and observe the last Thursday of November next. Is that the second to last Thursday? This is the wording. The last Thursday of November next as a day of...
The next one coming up.
Okay. So the last Thursday.
Yep. Because here's what happens. So think about it now. This is being used for very, very tactical purposes, isn't it? I mean, Washington used it to make us thankful about the Constitution, and in a certain way to bring us around to the Constitution, because although we ratified it, it wasn't unanimous. I mean, it wasn't.
It was an uncertain time.
Yeah, people voted against it.
Yeah,
and then we had to do the Bill of Rights because people didn't think there were enough rights in it. So it was a tactical decision. Why did he do it? He did it because this is when the Union. This could have been before we turned it around, or certainly before we were sure we were going to win, and obviously before he was killed. Obviously. And when he was running for re-election, let's not forget that. Lincoln was a politician, a good one, an honest one, the kind of politician you would want to model yourself on. Then it gets changed by Teddy Roosevelt. No, it doesn't get changed. It gets made a official holiday by Theodore Roosevelt, exactly as Lincoln had done it. And then Franklin Roosevelt, does the same thing, and he makes it more of a holiday. I don't know exactly what he does. He makes it even more of a holiday. And then in the middle of the Depression, he changes it to the second to last Thursday so that the Christmas season can begin earlier, so the businesses can make more money because of the Depression. In other words, he adds a week to the shopping season. And that gets so much criticism that in 3 years he has to change it. It goes back to the fourth Thursday, and that's where it's been since then. So that's the history of it. And it tells you a lot about us practical Americans. Yes, it all had to do with God. All of them talked about how thankful we should be to God, who we've thrown out of America. I mean, we didn't. Republicans didn't. We still say prayers at the beginning of the convention. And my goodness, if God, I don't even think God would show up at it. I shouldn't say that. Well, they wouldn't ask God to show up at a Democrat convention, so it's not a thought. It's like, they don't do Pledge of Allegiance anymore or stuff like that. But so Roosevelt in 41 had to put it back to where it is today, and it has remained that way ever since, and it will forever and ever. And it really is a beautiful American holiday, and stop all this colonizer crap. The two groups that did it, and I don't have time for that, we'll talk about it tomorrow, because I know the history here really well. I studied it, actually from my first show, and I did a podcast on it, a nice one. The fact is that the group of pilgrims and the group of Indians, Native Americans, or guardians, I guess they have to be called now, did have a peace treaty. And it was a good peace treaty. And it didn't get violated until the Puritans came in, the ones that followed Cromwell in England. Now, they were much more severe Protestants. They hated every other religion. They hated other Protestants. They hated the Pilgrims. Wiped them out. They didn't just wipe out the Native Americans. They wiped out the Indians. These are the ones who had the mishigas about witches, and not the original group. Original group of very holy, very pious people who really appreciated what the Native Americans did for them, and vice versa. Had that group remained, and those other idiots didn't come, and maybe a couple of nice Italians came who would bring in pasta, things could have been different. So when the Italians finally came, Boston ended up with the best food it ever had. So you can see I am somewhat prejudiced, and that is the Italian version of Thanksgiving, which will begin tomorrow with lasagna, and then it'll become all American. Then it'll be.
Is that an classic Italian Thanksgiving, Italian American Thanksgiving?
Yeah, at the very beginning of Italians in America, controversial. Many Italians, I think you heard. Did you hear last night the ladies who were at our apartment who were Italian American?
Oh yeah,
who said that their family banned Italian in the house. So did mine. My mother and father, who came from different parts of Italy, different parts of New York, but grew up at the same time, were never allowed to learn Italian. My mother, who was a student and a very bright woman, very well read, she was so angry at that in her later years. She tried to learn Italian on her own, and she did speak a little Italian, but never like her girlfriends who had learned it at home. And she was so upset. But they very much believe our kids are going to be American. We didn't come this long way so they can be like the ones back. We left there for a reason. My grandfather used to say, I love Italy. I love our culture. You should enjoy our culture, but never get fooled. We left there. And if you really want to know, I'll tell you the reasons, and then you'll never want to go back. Thank you, Rodolfo. And thank you to all of you. And thank you most of all. Well, let's do it in two groups. Thank you for the people in your life, in your background, in your genes that made the courageous decision to come here. Whether it was on the Mayflower, in which half of them died, or years later where half of them died. My grandfather, who came back here with $20 in his pocket. Thank you, Rodolfo. Thank you, Louis. Thank you, Adelina. And thank you, Evangeline. Those are my 4 who came here. If you hadn't made that gutsy decision, there'd be no Rudolph Giuliani for them to
Oh man,
try to put in prison.
No, what would have happened in New York City?
They wouldn't have anybody to try to put in prison now, except poor Donald Trump.
Well,
Trump would have to go to prison by the biggest consolation I have is he and I could probably have a pretty good time in prison. I think the prisoners would get along with us. We
Standing ovation.
We both got standing ovations. We teach them good stuff. I'd show them, how to get out of jail, write petitions. He'd show them how to make money, honestly. And look, it would be good for them. Maybe we could spend the rest of our lives doing that. But in any event, I'm being funny now. So thank your forebears. Thank your parents for teaching you all the traditions of America. Pass it on to your children, please. God willing. If you haven't yet, do it now. Never too late. Start little history courses with them. Start reading them books. And finally, yes, of course, thank you. Thank the Almighty God who gave us this country and left us with a special obligation that's at risk right now. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of the remaining part of this year and all of next year working on so that we can save our country and we can save our generation so we don't go down as the worst generation in American history, but maybe one of the best. God bless America. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. You have a lot to be thankful for. Most of it revolves around the fact that God allows you to be an American. God bless America.